everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Power of Youth Plus, where diverse perspectives shine. I'm your host Myrna. Today we are in the vibrant Renmin University of China, and we will be discussing the topic of how culture integrates around the world, specifically focusing on Chinese culture. My colleague Jackson will be going around campus to ask students what are their thoughts about Chinese culture in their countries. Have a look. Woo! Jackson, we've heard some fantastic answers, and as an alumni myself, I'm so excited to be back here. I'm gathered with some fantastic students here at Renmin University, but before we begin to see all the answers given, let's watch a video for Renmin University. All right, so welcome guys. Thank you for being here with us today. We have a friend from Sweden, from Jordan, from Pakistan, who will be sharing fantastic information about how culture integrates and shapes our mind about this world. So, as Jackson went on earlier and asked the students of Renmin University here what comes to their mind first when they think of China. So guys, let me ask you, what do you think could be the answers here? Does anyone want to have a go first? Ladies first?
Perhaps food?
Food! Which one of these will be food? A lot of people answered food, so fortunately it is cuisine. The second choice. Good choice. Since food is really Chinese food is really popular in everyone's country too. Who would like to go next? Anyone? Yes, Elliot.
I could guess potentially a philosophy.
Philosophy.
I'm not sure.
Philosophy. Good point. Good point. Actually, that is one of the answers.
Oh my God.
Right here.
Wow. Language.
Language. Congratulations. It is our first
Oh my God.
answer.
It's almost like
a lot of students are here to learn the language.
Right,
I assume
exactly.
that might be the first thing that comes to people's minds. So we have two more left.
Technology?
Yes. Thank you for unveiling the biggest box.
Okay.
And we have one more left.
Okay.
Who would like to go?
Fashion?
Fashion, no.
I'd take another shot. What about the Belt and Road Initiative?
No.
No? Okay.
So many, but you gave a lot of good answers. Do you want me to unveil the last one since I can have a go as well?
Sure.
Okay.
Chinese festivals.
Oh.
All right, so that was very good answers. I assume you've all seen all these in your countries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, so let's begin with you, Elliot, since you're closest to me.
Sure thing.
What brought you to China? What's your story with China? Tell us.
Oh God. Well, I started studying Chinese from the age of 12. And so I'm turning 21 this year, so I've been studying for almost 9 years. Yeah, exactly. So a long time, and when I was 12, I just started getting interested in China. So just from several different angles, like, you know, culture, history, philosophy, all that stuff, right? And then after I graduated high school, you know, I'd studied Chinese to an extent where, you know, I could use it in every day and stuff like that. You know, and it just felt very natural to me to go to China and go to university here for my bachelor's in order to develop my interests and my hobbies.
Wow.
Stuff like that, so.
What made you want to study Chinese at age of 12?
I'm a big fan of Chinese history. Yeah, especially modern day history. Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
Well, I think you have a similar experience in learning Chinese also at a young age, Aya. So tell us, back in Jordan, what's the first thing that pops into people's mind when we say China or Chinese culture?
Well, the first thing that pops in a lot of people's minds in my country would be movies.
Movies.
Because of the popularity of Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee.
Ashraf said Kung Fu earlier, didn't he?
Yeah. And well, I came to China during 2014 with my family, and I just fell in love with the Chinese culture. But I didn't actually start to learn Chinese properly until I went to university. And I studied advanced Chinese when I was in bachelor's and in my master's.
And before you came to China and after you came, well, before you came, let's go with the question. Did you feel there's any similarities between Chinese and Arab cultures?
Well, the first thing I could think of would be tea culture. Because Arabs really love to drink tea. And when I came to China, I realized that Chinese people love tea as well. I mean, there's different variations of tea between those two countries, but it's easy to see that tea is a part of daily life in China as it is back in my country.
Yes, absolutely. Tea, that's something I think that pops in a lot of people's head when we think about China. So I think you've had some, you're a tea drinker. Are you a tea drinker yourself?
Yes, I am.
Did you have any experience like getting to know more about tea culture in China when you're here?
Yes, I did. Well, a while back, I went with some of my classmates to Fujian and we attended a tea festival, and it was just so wonderful to learn about all these different types of tea and the ways to drink tea and how tea has become modernized in this age in like bubble tea and boba tea and all that.
Yes, from like traditional Chinese tea to now bubble tea being in every young person's hand. I mean, you see it a lot on campus, don't you? Would you guys wait in line for a milk tea or like a glass of tea?
Yeah, I would.
Girls are like, yes.
No,
it's like, no. What about you, Ashraf?
I don't
Probably
think
not.
I would, no.
So we have culture, we have tea, we have language. Ashraf, tell us about you.
Okay, well, you know, I grew up in Pakistan, and I then moved to the UK where I completed my education. And then I joined HBL, which is Pakistan's largest commercial bank.
Wow.
And I've worked there for 5 years, and you know, it's a privilege because they actually have a joint program with China Development Bank. And every year, two employees get selected to study a master's in China. So I was part of the 2023 cohort. So that's actually what brought me to China. And you know, given my global exposure, you know, it's thrilling to now gain a Chinese perspective.
Yeah.
And you know, unfortunately, I don't have much experience learning the language like my other fellow students, but I hope to pick up some during my time here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me more about this exchange program. Like,
Yeah.
it's quite a prestigious thing to get chosen?
It is. So, you know, HBL is a market leader on many fronts. We have very close associations with China. So we developed our green taxonomy, which, you know, helps sustainable lending in collaboration with Dr. Mahjong from Tsinghua University. So, you know, our collaboration with China and institutes in China runs deep. So the program that I'm part of is, it's a joint program with China Development Bank. And, you know, you go through like a selection process, and two employees get selected every year. And, you know, that's thanks to our honorable chairman who has really pushed this relationship. And we actually have 2 branches in Beijing as well.
Oh, wow.
One in Beijing and one in Xinjiang. So, you know, it is an honor to be selected for the program, and you know, I'm thoroughly enjoying my time.
Have you been to Xinjiang yet, or just?
I have not. No, I haven't been there yet, but I hope to travel more in my second year. You know, where we have a little more time.
Oh, it's only been your first year here.
Yeah.
So far.
I've only been here 2 semesters.
2 semesters. It's been good already.
It is. You know, I'm really enjoying it.
Fantastic. Wow. So I've heard that this exchange program has been around for many, many years.
It has. It's been. I don't know exactly how long, but I think it's at least 5 to 6 years, if not more.
So fantastic. Love the exchange. Do you think in the future there's going to be more people from Pakistan who would love to join this program?
Definitely. And this program is actually specific to HBL employees. But you know, I do see a lot of Pakistani students here, and you know, our ties with China run very deep.
Ironclad.
Yeah, ironclad brothers. So you know, I see in the future even more collaboration, and you know, on an institution to institution level, that would be great to see. You know, and people to people connections, because you know, we know that there is top level engagement always, But for institutes to engage more with each other, I think that would be really beneficial for cultural exchange.
Absolutely. So, Elliot, you started learning at 12.
Mm-hmm.
I assume when you were 12 years old, you were inspired by some movies or food or history and stuff like that. Tell me, what's the difference between before you came to China, like your thoughts about China, and then after you came?
Okay. To be honest, not a huge difference. Well, the thing is, because I came to China in 2018 and 2019, but on like 2 short trips, right? And I mean, when I came here last September, this is my first time living in China, for permanently or for a long time. I wouldn't say that there's any big difference in what I imagine versus what I'm actually seeing, right? I mean, in a good way, obviously, like everything I expected to see, I'm seeing, and potentially even better, right? No huge differences in that way. No, to be honest, no. Sadly, I can't provide I can't provide that much on this topic. No.
Because a lot of people before coming, they have like I think a certain image, whether it's on the media or it's through like movies or stuff like that, and then they come, they're like, it's quite different than what I expected. Was there like a shock moment for you? It's exactly as you imagined.
Yeah, no shock moments, sadly.
All right,
but in a good way, in a good way. Trust me, yeah.
And as a student here at Renmin, or like as a young fella like yourself, what do you think is the most, like as Ashraf said, we have exchanges through institute, through bank systems. What about for young people from Sweden? What do you think is a perfect way of exchanging with China to have more cultural understanding between each other?
Definitely try to do more like, intercultural communication and understanding events. The thing is, because there's not that many Chinese people living in Sweden. If you look out at all European countries, I think there's only about 30,000 in total that live in Sweden. I mean, it's not a really small number, but it's not a lot either, compared with certain countries like, for example, England or the Netherlands and things like that.
Chinatown and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have a Chinatown in Sweden or anything like that, which means that Chinese culture in Sweden, I wouldn't say it's not very, what do you say? Not popular, but it's not very, I can't find the word, but I think
as
you know
like
what I mean.
popular as you think in like other countries.
Yeah, exactly.
So with it being not as popular, what do people think when you're like, I'm living in China, or like I study Chinese since I was 12?
God, I mean, I guess different reactions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, with the studying Chinese, I think most people understand, and I guess I suppose they appreciate it as well, because I think for us Western people, I think Chinese is seen as probably the hardest or one of the hardest languages to learn in the world. And when I tell them I'm studying in China, I mean, people are just surprised, and they're just kind of shocked because I'm here for 4 years, right? It's not an exchange. I'm here for exactly. I'm here for a pretty long time, exactly. And yeah, I mean that's what I would say.
That's great. That's great. So you've said earlier you learned advanced Chinese when you were in your bachelor's and master's, right? Very impressive that you're in PhD already. But during your bachelor's and master's, tell us, what was Chinese education like in Jordan, or like as Elliot said, maybe it's not as popular as people would assume Chinese population or Chinese culture in other countries. But like in Jordan, tell us, is Chinese language education as popular as one might think?
When I was still living in Jordan before I moved to China, I wouldn't say that Chinese teaching was very popular in Jordan. Most people wanted to learn French or Spanish. But when I went back this time, I realized that a lot of people were choosing Chinese as their second language. And I think that's also due to a lot of like political relations with the Middle East. And it's when I learned a bit of Chinese back in my country, it's just, I feel like when you lack a Chinese environment, it's just so hard for you to really learn about the culture and like immerse yourself in the culture and to practice your Chinese.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now as you've moved from learning Chinese to you're studying journalism and stuff,
Yes.
How do you think learning Chinese has helped you understand Chinese society more now that you're doing media and journalism?
Well, as we know, that media is the world's like most influential medium or agent. And I think that unless you truly speak Chinese and you understand the culture, you might be susceptible to some biases in the media. But what I think is that people really need to just leave their own backyards and truly see the world. And my teacher back in bachelor's told me that the only way that you could truly like capture people's hearts is if you understand them from their own culture and you speak to them in their own language. And I feel like that is what the world lacks right now.
Yes. I've also always heard when they say that learning about a culture even if you've learned it for years, it might just be like closing one eye at the whole story. But when you actually do learn the language, it might be like looking at something through both eyes. So I do think language is super important as well when you're learning a culture. All right, fantastic, great points, guys. Now we're going to our lovely, since you mentioned ironclad brothers between China and Pakistan, I assume there's a lot of projects, joint projects between China and Pakistan. Are there any that really you saw them before you came to China?
Yes, well, obviously now with us over a decade into the Belt and Road Initiative, there are many projects, but what I'd really like to speak to is the Karakoram Highway, which was actually built in the 1960s and 70s, and it's the highest paved road in the world at almost 17,000 feet, connecting Pakistan and China. And it's a strategic route, a trade route. So growing up, you always heard about China and Pakistan's relationships, and that road was built in collaboration with the Chinese. So that just really speaks to the kind of development that the relationships have brought. Now, in more recent terms, there's collaboration on energy, on infrastructure, and now we're actually into phase 2 of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And we really do hope that we can both reap the benefits of these, large-scale development projects.
Pakistan Economic Corridor is quite famous. We see it a lot in the headlines, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great. So, wonderful points. We go back to our lovely board right here. We can see language, as you've mentioned, but I want to talk a bit more about cuisine. I feel like nobody mentioned, except tea earlier. But tell me more. What is Chinese cuisine like in Sweden?
I'd say it's getting better and better with the years, not like I'm some sort of expert, right? But I mean, if you ask me, I'd say in the West, in Europe, a lot of Chinese restaurants, maybe they're not very authentic, and they tend to adapt food quite a lot to fit kind of, local taste buds, right? I'd say that in Sweden these years, we've been getting more and more, I guess, more authentic Chinese food, right? I'd say most of it is probably like Chuancai, like Sichuan food. Yeah, that's probably.
Love, spicy.
Yeah, I worked at a Sichuan restaurant actually last summer.
Did you?
Yeah, in Sweden, in Stockholm.
Last summer? Tell us about that.
Well, it was fun. I mean, it was great. I knew the boss from before, and it was right before I was going to go to China, so I needed a summer job, and I was like, I hit him up on WeChat, and I was like, do you need someone? And he's like, yeah, come over, and you can be like a what do you call that? Like
a sous chef?
I was not a chef. No. God, no. No, I was a runner.
A runner?
Yeah.
Well, did you get to learn something behind the scenes, behind the kitchen?
God, I mean, I guess I know how to like put herbs on the...
We're changing our episode name today to Lessons Learned at a Sichuan Restaurant in Sweden by Elliot. So
many life lessons in that
Really?
kitchen. No. Well, I mean, it depends on what you talk about with them, I mean, I guess they all have experiences that are interesting.
Were they fascinated by your language skills?
I suppose, but I knew the boss from years before, so he wasn't he already knew who I was, right? I was like a name in the industry.
You were a name already.
Yeah,
And then they really needed your herbal skills.
Pretty much. That's what it was.
So, what is your favorite Sichuan dish?
Ooh, hard. Probably 辣子鸡. Yeah, 辣子鸡, probably.
Hungry already. Do you like spicy food, Aya?
Yes, of course I do.
Tell us a bit about Chinese food in the Arab world.
Well, Chinese food in the Arab world wouldn't be very authentic, of course, and there's a lot of fusion foods, a lot of fusion restaurants. And I think that's also quite interesting because we can really see just like the exchange between different cultures, because food is also culture as well. So when you fuse Chinese food with Arab food, that in itself is a cultural exchange.
Yes. It'd be very hard to imagine the taste of Chinese and Arab food fused together, but I mean, it's always creative, I guess. And also, like, Chinese and Arabs always have the big feast, like, every week and every, weekend. So is big feasts in the Arab world and in China something to talk about, like the hospitality? Do you sense the hospitality here, similar to what you've seen in the Middle East?
Yes, of course. Well, one thing I can say about Arab and Chinese cuisine is that they take their food very seriously.
Yes, absolutely. He's like, yes, from a Sichuan restaurant.
Yes, they do. And I really loved how just hospitable Chinese people are to their guests. Every time I go out and eat with a large group of Chinese people, they're always like, in Chinese it's called 给我夹菜, and I just feel like that's really heartwarming. And it reminds me of back home as well.
Oh, Since we're speaking about food, I love that. May I dare ask if there's any fusion food between China and Pakistan cuisine?
Well, I don't know if there's fusion, but like what Elliot said, I think in each country it's tailored to
The flavor of
yeah,
the
to
locals?
the local populace. But Chinese food is probably the most popular international food there is. And I've seen it even in the English countryside where I lived. These many Chinese restaurants. But one interesting thing is that only after coming to China I realized the diversity within Chinese food.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just paint it with one broad brush because depending on the regions, it's also different. And I'm not much of a spicy food eater, but I think there's different variations to suit everyone's taste buds.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let me ask you, since you said there's a lot of flavors to fit everyone's taste buds, as the diversity that you mentioned here in China, being here for almost 1 year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you feel like you have been in an environment where they allowed you to also show your Pakistani heritage and culture to the people of China?
Of course, very much so. I mean, there's many exchanges where you can meet people, and people are curious about Pakistani culture. But I think it again goes back to the fact that we have such long-standing ties that we already have a lot of similar values. And China being such a rich and ancient culture, steeped with tradition, with family values and respect for elders, and many of these things us as Pakistanis we share as well. So yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. The shared values.
Shared
so it won't be
values.
as confusing or as foreign when you meet people and stuff.
Yeah, it's in a way it's like Eastern values, and yeah. So I think it's great, and it would be nice to see more exchanges going forward. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, then I'll just begin with you since you spoke about exchanges. As a youth from Pakistan who lived in England, has a global perspective, you came to China, you've experienced life here. How do you feel like you could be a bridge in the future? Or what do you think is the position of youth in the future between China-Pakistan relations?
Well, I think the youth is very important because we have to shape this world because we will be living in it, right, going forward. And I think the main thing is to shun politics of divisive politics, and just see where we can add value to not just certain relationships but to the greater good, and really take on tasks where us as young individuals can add value for ourselves and for whatever task we may choose to endeavor on.
Yeah, well said, well said. And for our lovely lady, as a future bridge between China and the Arab world and Jordan, what do you think is the position of youth, or even yourself?
Well, as a person who is studying media right now, I feel like social media is one of the best ways in order to bridge the two cultures. I mean, everyone's glued to their phone right now and everybody's on social media. And the things that we see on the internet could really shape how we see a certain culture. So I feel like if many young Jordanians and young Jordanian influencers come to China, and also vice versa, if many Chinese influencers come to Jordan, that would really be a good way for people to learn about each other's cultures and to bridge some gaps that are between us.
Absolutely. When I look at you, I'm still thinking what possibly could be the way you are putting herbs on food. So
It's a running joke now. Please, am I like the laughing stock of this show?
Never.
Hubby.
We keep the best for last, obviously. So tell us, as a young person from Sweden, what do you think is the position of youth for future China, not even just China-Sweden, China-world relationships?
Right. Well, if I first say like China-Sweden specifically, in Sweden, I'd say there's a severe lack of people that actually understand China or know things about China. And I mean, Sweden is not an exception. I mean, in many Western countries, we have biases or we have unrealistic ideas about what China's like as a country. So for me to be able to have the opportunity to be here for 4 years and study international politics from a Chinese perspective and together with local Chinese students, because it's a Chinese program, right? I think that's a very rare opportunity. And I feel like when I'm done here after these 4 years, I definitely want to try to take the knowledge and perspective and all the things I learn here and just try to tell Swedish people about it in some way, try to make them understand just a bit more what China's really like and what China wants or how China sees the world, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean.
Well said, all of you. Well, I think this brings us to the end of our episode. So we thank again our lovely guest, Elliot, Aya, and Ashraf, and hopefully we'll see you on future episodes as well. Thank you for watching. This is The Power of Youth, and we'll catch you next time.